Welcome to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, where we talk about homesteading stuff and life stuff and everything in between. Join me, Amy Dingman, as we explore big questions on a little farm. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, where we talk about life and how to live a good one. Today is May 6th, 2025. This is episode 313. Today, we're going to kind of talk about storms, but not just the kind of storms that mess with your trees and your roof and, all of that. We're going to talk about the storms that we whip up in our own heads because the world can't stop scrolling and panicking and making noise and trying to win the who's most prepared contest or the I care the least Olympics. We're going to talk about how life maybe doesn't need our commentary. It needs our calm. So we're kind of diving into over-information and panic and how it's not helping and what we can attempt to do about that, whether it has to do with weather or world events or whatever. But before we get to that, what's been happening on the Lifestead? Well, I don't know if the microphone is picking this up, but I got some chicks in this office right behind me, so you might be able to hear them. Last time I recorded, we were in the middle of hatching. We ended up with 16 chicks out of 44, which is probably the worst hatch we've ever had. That was 44 eggs in 2 different incubators, and we only got 16, and only 14 survived. So I don't know what was up with it. Actually, I had given some fertilized eggs to a pal who wanted to try incubating, and I gave her 12 eggs, and she only had a 50% hatch. So I don't know if something's going on with Senor Ricardo, Mr. Rooster. I don't know if he's not doing his job. We did candle, and it looked like, everything was developing. So I don't know if we had a bunch that stopped developing. I don't know why we had such a terrible hatch this time, but we now have 14 baby chicks, and they're sitting behind me, and they're very antsy, and they need to move outside to the barn. So that's what I'm doing after I get done recording. What else has been going on? I harvested asparagus for the very first time from our homestead, which was super awesome because I love asparagus. It popped right up this year. It was big enough to pick, to harvest. And so I had myself a nice lunch yesterday of asparagus that I grew, and it was wonderful. Roasted it for about 10 minutes at 400 degrees. It was delicious, got a little bit crispy, put a little salt and pepper on it. It was awesome. So that was delightful. What else can I tell you? Well, I'm recording this a little bit earlier than it's going to come out, but on the day that this releases, it technically, if everything works out correctly, it should also be release day for my newest book about homesteading called Peace, Love, and Bacon. It should, as you are hearing this, now be available on Kindle and in paperback. Not quite ready on audiobook yet, but it's getting there. Let me read you what the back cover of this book is, in case you're wondering, should I pick this up? What is it even about, Amy? So here's the back cover. Ever spent all day baking bread only to toss in a frozen pizza for dinner? Ever dreamed of a bountiful harvest but ended up with 1 cucumber and a sunburn? Ever built a sturdy chicken coop only to find that the hens prefer laying eggs in the woodshed? Same, my friends, same. If you think homesteading is all golden hour moments and rustic perfection, think again. Peace, Love, and Bacon is a behind-the-scenes look at the reality of modern homestead living, quirky, challenging, and deeply rewarding. Through laugh-out-loud stories, practical tips, and heartfelt reflections, this book dives into what it really means to live the farmish life. It's not always pretty, but it's always worth it. Whether you are a seasoned homesteader, a backyard dreamer, or just here for a good laugh, Peace, Love, and Bacon is your invitation to pull up a chair and enjoy the ride. So that is the back cover. So if that sounds interesting, check out the show notes. There will be a link for where you can pick it up. Otherwise, just go to Amazon and look for Peace, Love, and Bacon, and you should find it. All right, with that, let's head over to the main topic. We're going to get a little bit spicy about over-information and how I'm kind of over it. So last week, there was this big storm that was supposed to be rolling in, and they had talked about it for several days beforehand about how there was this potential for really bad storms in our area. And they continued to talk about it and the paths that it might take. And then as it got closer, they got more specific about the path it was going to take across the state. And they kept talking about how it was going to be 2 rounds. There was going to be one in the early morning, and then there was going to be a stronger one in the late afternoon. They kept talking about it and talking about it, and they talked about it so much that schools started closing early, and after school activities were canceled, and people were like battening down the hatches. They were ready for the storm that was going to make its way across the state. And Facebook was totally buzzing with activity about this. I had gone to my personal Facebook feed to check a group that I was in, and I needed some information from that group. And so I go on my personal Facebook feed, and I'm looking, and I'm hit with like post after post after post on my news feed about this storm and what was going to happen. And it's all these bright colors and this take shelter and all these radar maps and like everything, right? So we ended up in a tornado warning for about 45 minutes. And radar indicated that we were in this like deep red goodness, right? Now red, as the radar is going across, like red means torrential downpour, possible hail, all that stuff, right? So we see this and we're like, okay, we put my car in the shed, we close up the barns, we're like ready, right? Well, 20 miles south of us did get hail. We didn't get hail. We didn't get torrential downpours. We barely got any rain at all. We didn't get any strong winds. For all intents and purposes, not very much happened at all. Now, this episode is not so much about the fact that the forecast or the radar was wrong for my area, like flat out wrong. That's not really what this is about. This is more about the fact that the constant updates and the over-information made it feel like something was going to happen to everyone, right? And it made people jumpy and anxious and on edge before a single drop of rain even fell. It was like the storm became content. It became commentary. It became like this whole event before it even arrived. And by the time it did arrive, or didn't in our case, most people had already exhausted themselves like living through it online. Now, I am not saying that storms aren't serious. I am not saying don't be smart and be prepared. What I'm saying is maybe we are not built to live in a world where we mentally experience the storm 4 different ways before it even hits our county line. Because it wasn't just the weather updates. It was the energy of all of it. It was the loudness. It was the flashing graphics. It was this like feed of fear on social media. And the part that stuck with me the most was that after it all passed, there was almost this weird collective disappointment almost. Like, that was it? Wait, that was it? Because we had been so built up that when nothing happened, it felt wrong. And not to mention that after everything passed, it was really hard to find out if anyone anywhere had actually seen any weather. Which is crazy, because before the storm hit, it was 30 different pages of, oh my God, it's coming, and okay, oh, you have to take shelter, and blah, it's coming. Compare that to after it actually happened, like you couldn't find any information about it. And that's when I realized nowadays, the weather or the election or the press conference or the whatever is happening, right? It isn't always the thing that exhausts us. It's how we live through it before it even begins. And side note here, back in the day when I was little, if there was a real weather thing that's going to happen, right? Like, oh my gosh, they'd break into Wheel of Fortune, right? The weather forecaster guy would like break into Wheel of Fortune. It was like a thing. Okay. Otherwise, like you looked at the sky, you thought, okay, there might be something coming. You moved the lawn chairs, and you hoped for the best. And the other thing is like, I feel like when I was younger, if you saw red on the radar, you were doomed. Like it meant something. Like, oh my gosh, there's red on the radar, right? And now I feel like you can be under a red blob. Like you can be on your weather app or you can be watching the TV and your area, it's red, right? That line is coming over and it's red. And you're looking outside and you're like, what? This is what's happening. I'm getting a few raindrops, but the radar says that we're under red. Like it should be, you can hardly drive in this because it's raining so hard or there's hail or like, I feel like there's always red on the radar now. And it doesn't necessarily mean there's anything happening. Like, what is with that? But again, this isn't really about how the forecasts can be wrong. This is about over-information and fear and panic and doom and reactions and the intention of safety that seems to have gone completely askew, right? Because it's all about making us safe, right? We want to tell you what the weather's going to be so then you can be safe. And this whole thing has me thinking about a bunch of stuff, but like here's one of the things I'm thinking about. When did we lose the ability to just live our lives without needing to perform our preparedness or our panic? Nobody just lives their life anymore. We have to like perform how prepared we are, or we have to perform how scared we are. Now, again, I'm not talking about ignoring real danger. That's absolutely not what this is about. But not everything is a real danger. We live in a world now that's full of over-talking and overreacting and like this over-information paralysis. And aside from that, we also live in a world where there's a need for a lot of people to be seen reacting to things. And this is not just about the weather. It's how we consume and react to everything now. Because every headline, every prediction, every what if becomes this adrenaline hit. And we are overstimulated and we are overfed on worry and like undernourished when it comes to real peace. And we have this constant flood of information. And I think that has trained us to believe that we should have something to say about every event and every news story and every possible outcome. Like we are somehow more worthy or more good if we're more alarmed or more informed or more prepared than the next person. It's almost like if you are quiet about something, it means you're ignorant, right? I've heard that so many times. Like, don't you even know what's going on? Like, why are you quiet about this? So it's almost like silence equals ignorance, and panic is proof that you care. And I think this craziness shows up in a lot of different things. Like in the news, every headline is breaking news. Every event is framed as the worst thing ever. And if you are not posting about this, you are accused of not caring. In the homesteading world, in the prepping world, it's like, if you're not freeze drying 100 pounds of food for next year's possible shortage, you are failing your family. Or if you are not constantly stacking skills and stacking supplies and making plans for 47 different scenarios, you're not serious enough. Do you feel the panic in that? This even happens in parenting. Because if you are not researching every possible danger your child might face, you are neglectful, right? Parenting used to be raising kids. Now it's kind of turned into this like 24/7 risk analysis. Do you feel the panic in that? It's in everyday life. I mean, like the weather. It used to be, it might rain. It might storm. Now it's 14 different models. It's a gazillion different storm chasers live streaming what's going on. It's this 72-hour social media meltdown before it happens or doesn't happen. Like shortages in the grocery store. Used to mean, well, there's no strawberries today. Oh, there's no lettuce today. Now it's, oh my God, the collapse is coming. There's so much panic. In health, normal aches and pains and like aging get Googled in these like full-blown medical emergencies at 3 a.m. when you're worried about it, right? We are over-informed to the point of panic before a real problem even exists. So how did this happen? How did we become this world of over-information? Didn't happen overnight. And a lot of you listening to this are old enough to remember when this was not the thing. I think there's a few things that added to this. I think it started when we started to have 24-hour news channels. When I was younger, it was the 6 o'clock news. It was a 6 p.m. news, right? And there might have been like a 9 p.m. news. You could not turn on the TV and find out what was going on 24 hours a day. You can now. And the thing is that when 24-hour news channels started to be a thing, they realized they couldn't fill 24 hours with only important news, right? Because not everything's important, or is it? So then the 24-hour news channels had to start filling it with like speculation and commentary and these fear-based what ifs, right? Because what else are you going to talk about on a 24-hour news channel? The other thing that happened is social media. It made everyone a news anchor. It made everyone a weather forecaster. It made everyone a political analyst. And then we got smartphones, right? And we put that massive fire hose of information and news and opinions and fear into our pockets 24/7. And somewhere along all of that, we started believing that being informed meant being constantly updated, which meant being constantly anxious and constantly ready to react. But constant updates don't make you smarter and they don't make you safer. They just make you anxious and reactive. Not everything needs to be a 5-alarm emergency, because some things are just things. You know, it might rain hard. It might not. Either way, I got to feed the pigs. I got to get my kids to practice. I got to, it's going to happen, okay? And sometimes it's just a thing. It's just a thing. And the crazy thing that I'm learning is that a lot of people will, perform this panic in order to feel relevant. It's that constant posting and updating and warning and arguing, because there's almost this feeling like if I'm not talking about it, I'm not important. And if I am talking about it, I am important. No one just lives through things quietly anymore. Everyone has to comment. People are terrified of everything. And that might not be the people in this audience, and I hope it's not, but maybe this is giving you a window into how other people are seeing things, or maybe why they are so panicky, right? People are just starting to be terrified of everything, like every possibility, every worst case scenario, every cloud on the horizon, every sniffle, every supply chain hiccup, every weather model. Now, there are some people who will say we are safer than we have ever been. There are other people who will say, oh my gosh, no, we're not. And that's a whole nother podcast episode, right? But consider this. We have technology now that can predict storms days in advance. We have access to food. We have access to medicine, emergency services. We have information at our fingertips. That should make us safer, right? Right? Having that available. And yet somehow we are more afraid than our grandparents were, or our great-grandparents were. The ones who lived through the Dust Bowls, the World Wars, the winters where they didn't have a backup generator. How are we more afraid than they were? Some folks will say that we live in a more dangerous time now. Like I said, that could be a whole nother podcast episode, because yes, there are things to be concerned about now. And there are different things to be concerned about now, but I don't know that it's more dangerous now. I think we've traded some things to be worried about now that didn't exist 100 years ago, and vice versa. You know, there are things that folks would have been worried about 100 years ago that we don't even blink an eye at now. But I don't know that it's comparatively more dangerous now. I think it's that our fear is more constant. We have been taught that every risk must be eliminated. Every danger must be predicted. Every uncertainty should be pre-lived inside our heads before it even happens. And honestly, I don't think that's wisdom. I think that's just exhausting. When did being alive start to mean that we had to predict every possible way we could die? Have you ever thought about that? And if we're safer than ever, and gosh, we should be because of all the rules and regulations and safeguards and improvements and all the things, why do we feel more panicked than ever? Why is anxiety levels of the world through the roof? When did being prepared turn into never letting yourself feel safe? What would it feel like to simply trust that you will handle what happens when it happens? What would it feel like to feel that, to trust that? If you can't live your life because you are busy planning how it might fall apart, are you actually really living? Is that living? If you're just planning how it might fall apart, worried about how it might fall apart, is that living? I wonder what our great-grandparents would say about that. And I'm not blind to the fact that we live in a very complicated world. There are real risks. There are real problems. I'm not saying that everything is sunshine and daisies and puppy dog tails and we should just skip through life without a care. I'm not saying that at all. But here's some truths that I've been thinking about. Number one, our great-grandparents faced constant, unavoidable risks and they could not Google them ahead of time. They didn't know when the next drought was going to hit. They didn't have modern medicine. They didn't have emergency services on call. They couldn't call 911 to deal with their issues. If they had a barn fire or they got bit by a snake or they had a bad infection, those were life-altering risks. They lived with real danger. But they didn't let fear define their every waking moment. Number two, today, I think we are somewhat safer because of technology and community, not despite it. We have instant communication. We have emergency warnings that reach millions within minutes. We have hospitals. We have antibiotics if you need them. We have refrigeration. We have weather radar. We have building codes. And yes, all those things can be taken to some crazy level, But do you get what I'm saying? The problem isn't that the world got more dangerous. The problem is that we have access to every scary thing that could happen everywhere all the time. And you know what? Number three, fear has become a product. And we're being sold way more of it than we used to be because fear drives clicks. Fear drives ratings. Fear keeps people engaged. So when you are bombarded by fear constantly, it feels like the world is more dangerous. Even if statistically, you're safer than your ancestors ever were. The world isn't necessarily scarier. We're just bombarded with every scary thing all the time, everywhere. And there have always been dangers. I've said that in several podcast episodes over the last several years. There have always been dangers. There's always been the boogeyman. We just didn't give him his own headline every 5 minutes. And we dealt with the dangers quietly instead of broadcasting them 24/7. Today, every what if gets treated like it's a guaranteed emergency. Fear used to be a warning. Now it's almost like it's a lifestyle. And I think that is part of the real danger. Knowing that there is risk is not the same as living scared of it. Those are two completely different things. Let me say it again. Knowing there is risk is not the same as living scared of it. Teaching caution is good. Teaching panic is not. Panic doesn't help. Again, I am not saying ignore storms. I'm not saying don't prepare. I'm not saying bad things never happen. What I'm saying is pay reasonable attention, prepare like a sane person, and don't feed a culture of constant adrenalized panic over every single possibility. I was watching some people commenting on one of the Facebook pages, that were basically like, where's the storm? Did the storm hit anywhere? Where did the storm actually happen? Because you said it was coming here, it didn't come here. And some folks got mad that other folks were expressing frustration over the dramatic, over-the-top, constantly changing forecast. They were like, do you want there to be death and destruction? No. Another person said, it's like you think the forecast is for your own backyard. That's not how it works. Nope, I don't think that the forecast is specifically for my backyard, but when you tell me the storm is going northwest of my town, and I look north and there is nothing, and you guys, I can see for a ways, I'm in flatland here, okay? The storm is going northwest of your town, and I look north, there's nothing. Nothing. And I turn to the southeast and it's moving south away from my property. And you still tell me the storm is in the town northwest of my house and it's not? Come on. Come on. Part of this is that we get the possibilities of what the weather's going to do days before. And it changes. And that's what the weather does. That's what the weather has always done. 50 years ago, we didn't get that. We didn't hear a week before a storm that a storm was coming, and here's the 6 different paths it might take. So again, it's the over-information that's killing this whole thing. And the problem with over-information is that when it's wrong, more often than it's right, it makes people no longer pay attention or trust what's being said. If the last 6 times you told me death and destruction are coming to my area, and you were absolutely wrong, why should I believe you on the 7th time? And then the irony is that in trying to predict things for the sole purpose of making people more safe, it actually backfires. Because the predictions are often wrong. And for people who are going to look up and use their brains and realize, oh, nope, they were off again. Okay, that's one thing. But for people who don't, who treat the news and the forecasters and the storm chasers as gospel, that's a problem. Back in the day, people knew danger existed. They taught their kids common sense. They took reasonable precautions. They trusted their own judgment. They accepted that risk was part of life, and they lived with resilience and like grit, right? Now, people assume danger is everywhere all the time. They hover over their kids 24/7 and still feel guilty. They take extreme precautions for things that might never happen. They trust strangers on the internet more than their own instincts. They believe that every single risk must be eliminated. And they live with anxiety and outrage. And they call it being prepared. And again, that might not be the people in this audience, but even if it's not, it definitely shapes the world. If that's the reality of how most people are dealing with stuff, I think that's important for us to talk about. I don't think we got safer by knowing every bad thing that could happen. I think we got safer by being people who could handle whatever did. Let me say that again. We did not get safer by knowing every bad thing that could happen. We got safer by being people who could handle whatever did. And I think that's not where a lot of us are anymore, right? We think we're safer because we know every possibility that could happen and we're going to prepare for every possibility, right? Maybe we just need to be people who can handle whatever happens. And again, this isn't just about the weather. I don't think we're drowning because life got harder. I think we're drowning because we never get a break from hearing about every single bad thing that might happen. Fear has become like this background noise of modern life. And I think if we want to live any kind of steady or grounded or somewhat peaceful life, I think we have to learn how to turn the volume down on that background noise. It's not that the storms are worse. Again, literal or figurative. It's not that the storms are worse. I think it's that now we're trying to live through every single storm everywhere before it even gets here. And honestly, no wonder we are exhausted. That's exhausting. Now, hopefully you have found a source that works for you, that you can trust. If that's a page, if that's a person, if that's a news channel, like whatever it is. I hope that you have found a source or two that works for you, that you can trust. People, outlets that you know are solid and not just trying to hype everything up. But if you step back and you look at the bigger picture, the sheer number of sources throwing information at you is a huge part of the problem. When I was scrolling my Facebook feed before that last storm, it was not a balanced view of the weather. It was 100 different pages. Okay, maybe not 100, but probably 40 different pages were coming up in my feed. And most of them I'd never seen before. And they're all posting the brightest colors and the scariest maps and the biggest, "It's coming" headlines. Like I said before, we had schools closing early. We had after-school activities canceled. I don't know that I have ever seen that when it didn't have something to do with a blizzard coming in the middle of the day. And even that's pretty rare for them to cancel school for that or to close school early for that. And the thing is, these people are not just trying to inform you, they're trying to win you because information has become a competition. It's not really about what they're even telling you anymore. It's about who can grab your attention first. It's about who can keep you clicking or who can make you nervous enough to stay glued to their updates instead of someone else's. And we cannot fix the fact that information is turned into a competition. We can't fix that. That is our world today. But we can fix how much of ourselves we hand over to it. Because I think you are allowed to stay informed without letting it consume you. And I think you are allowed to prepare without panicking. And I think you're allowed to live through life without narrating every single cloud, literal or figurative, that passes overhead. So before you react or repost or spiral into worry, and some of you probably already know this, but I'm just going to throw it out there. Number one, is it from a trusted source? You see something, you hear something, is it from a trusted source? Not someone who heard from someone on Facebook, right? Is it a trusted source? Number two, is this information actually useful to me right now? Or is it just stirring the pot and trying to steal my peace? Is this information I can use? Is it information I need? Right? Number three, can I do something about it? This thing I just heard about, can I do something about it? If yes, act. If no, prepare reasonably. Say a prayer if that's your thing, and move on. Number four, am I reacting based on facts or based on feelings? I just heard this thing. I'm feeling a reaction. Is that based on the facts or is that based on how I'm feeling? Because panic is not a plan, you guys. I mean, it might be a plan. It's a terrible plan, right? Panic is a terrible plan. Maybe that's what we should say. Number five, after I hear this or I read this or whatever, do I still feel grounded and sane? Okay? And sane, not insane. If not, close the app, turn it off, stop talking to the person, go feed the chickens, go bake something, go live your life. Okay? So I think that's a good checklist to go through. When you hear something, see something, find something out, before you react or repost or spiral down into this big worry, those are some things that you can do to figure out what path you should take. Now, I'm not going to pretend that we're just going to log off and stop talking to people. We're going to go live in the woods forever, right? And just be by ourselves, right? There are days that is tempting, but that's not reality, right? We live in a real world. We talk online. We work online. We build community online. We find things out online. So the solution isn't never speak. I think the solution is learning to speak differently. So here are some ways to maybe stay grounded and avoid adding to the chaos and adding to the noise. Number one, know the difference between sharing and shouting. Sharing is offering information calmly and thoughtfully with a goal of helping or connecting. That's a good thing, right? Sharing is a good thing. Shouting is fear-based. It is urgent. It is repetitive. And it's often intended to provoke reaction instead of reflecting. So before you post something, comment something, retell a story, ask, am I sharing or am I shouting? Number two, this is something I think a lot of people have forgotten. Talk like you're in a room with real people, especially online. Because when we're online, there's a screen, right? And we feel braver. So when you're going to get into a conversation online about something, politics, the weather, whatever world event is going on, would you say it this way if you were standing around the kitchen table with your friends? Would you say it if they were right in front of your face? Would you post it with the same tone if your grandma was listening or your 8-year-old was listening? Because online conversations need the same human decency as real ones. And 90% of what you see online or hear online, or the fights and the comments that you see online, those would never happen in person. Never. And we know that. Number three, do not predict catastrophes that you can't control. It is perfectly okay to say, there's a chance of storms, here's what I'm doing to get ready. It is not helpful to say, oh my God, this is it, it's happening. Unless you actually know something's happening for sure, right? Sharing preparation is good. Spreading fear is not good and not productive at all. Number four, practice letting some things pass by without comment. That can be online or in person. You don't have to have a take on every single piece of news. You really don't. You don't have to comment on every possibility. Silence is powerful. It really is. So is peace. That's pretty powerful. Number 5. I think we're on number 5. Remember this. Urgency does not necessarily equal importance. Just because something is trending or something is loud or something is dramatic or it's the thing that everybody's talking about, it doesn't mean it's actually urgent in your life. We need to learn discernment. Discernment is a skill, I think, that's worth sharpening. So here's what I'm going to leave you with today. We don't need more noise. We need more calm voices. We need more thoughtful action. We need more people who can watch the storm, quote unquote, come and be steady anyway. Okay? We don't have to win a competition of who's the most worried. We don't have to win the competition of who cares the least, who's watching more news, who's watching less. You are allowed to be aware and prepared and be quietly peaceful about it. That's fine. I think being prepared is smart. I think being in a permanent state of panic is not. And you know what? I trust you guys to know the difference because you all are smart. We just need to spread this little bit of information to the rest of the people, I think. Can you imagine how the world would be if we weren't just constantly waiting on every little piece of information to blow it into something incredible and then be in this permanent state of panic? It would be crazy. It'd be a totally different world. Thank you so much for hanging out here with me at the Farmish Kind of Life podcast. If you want to read a book that, I don't know, I think it's kind of good. I had fun writing it and I think it might be a good read. Please head over to Amazon and check out Peace, Love, and Bacon. You can find it for Kindle and in paperback. And very soon it will be available on audiobook. Thanks so much for hanging out with me here today, you guys. I will talk to you again soon. Hope you enjoyed the show today. To continue the conversation, visit our website at afarmishkindoflife.com. Find A Farmish Kind of Life on social media or drop me an email at amy@afarmishkindoflife.com. Peace, love, and bacon, y'all. Stay Farmish.